Welcome to another episode of Same Page. We are your hosts, Sarah Simagist.
And Lenard Simagist.
Today we're coming to you with a very candid topic. Just a conversation really about your feelings in a relationship. Really, we're going to talk about checking your feelings in a relationship, or checking how you react to certain situations in a relationship, and really seeing, evaluating what is the importance and what is the really big impact that it has on your relationship and on your couple, basically.
Exactly. And we're really going to dive into a lot of self-reflection, because we don't want this to be a topic where one person isn't necessarily attacking the other, but you taking the time to self-reflect and evaluate, like, how could I have reacted differently in that situation?
Right. So do we want to jump into an example to really see what that really
Sure,
means?
let's do that.
So yesterday, Lenard fasts once a week, right? And sometimes more,
Yeah,
if I'm not
sometimes more.
mistaken.
Yeah.
And I think I made a comment about I offered him a snack.
Yeah.
It was about like 7:30 or maybe 8 o'clock at night. And then I knew that either he was fasting or
Stop eating for the day.
Yeah, stop eating for the day. So as soon as I asked the question, I was just like, hey, do you want some? And then what did you respond?
I responded in a way. Well, first of all, she said it in kind of like a the way I took it, it was kind of like an ironic type of way.
I
where
think I
it's
asked like a rhetorical question, like,
Exactly.
do you want some? I'm like, no, I'm fasting.
Yeah.
So even before listening to your answer, I kind of like made fun of your answer.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so the way I'm like here, like, I guess the way I took it initially is like, here I am trying to, better myself, trying to adopt these new habits, because it's no secret. Like, when it comes to food, I have a very weird relationship when it comes to food. I wouldn't say it's toxic by any means, but it's definitely I'm in a position right now where I have to look at food differently. For throughout my life, I've been looking at food as type of like a reward, but I should be looking at it more as fuel. All that to say is that I struggle with cravings. Right. So if I'm here I am trying to implement a couple habits for me to improve on being able to control these cravings. And when Sarah made that comment, I thought she was attacking these new habits that I'm trying to adopt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which I wasn't. I don't even know what I was doing. I was just trying to have a little fun and just I didn't take it very seriously. I didn't really dive into what he would feel like or how I would make him feel. So I definitely made fun of it. I was just like, oh yeah, you're fasting. No.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you saying it like that?
Exactly. Right. And to her point, like, here she is. That was her way of playing, and I took it totally the opposite way. And then I took it very personal. I believe I got a little too sensitive, so I got caught up in my feelings, and kind of like I felt a little bit. I felt like I felt myself kind of like distancing myself from her, just kind of like, oh, okay, is this how you feel? So
about you fasting? Yeah. And I think like as much as it was a joke, I think that comment stemmed from like, me wanting to, like, lately I haven't cooked that much, right? Not that I was cooking. This was not a snack that I had made or anything like that. But it's just that, like, I still have that feeling where you kind of like have to feed your man. And it's not because Lenard puts any pressure on me or whatnot. It is just this idea to still have, it's like, even if I don't cook as often, but like, once in a while, I just want to offer you something to make sure that you're not starving and like, you're good, even though I know you're not. So I feel like when I do have the opportunity to offer you something and then you reject it, I'm like, oh gosh, here I am making like the slightest bit of effort to to offer you something, and it's like, oh no, I don't eat right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it stemmed from, but at the same time, it was jokingly.
Yes.
But when you reacted the way you reacted, I was just like, chill, dude. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal, and you were kind of like, you know, frowning and looking at me like, you know, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
So to your point, it's definitely important to look at so his reaction. I'm going to speak about your reaction for a little bit. His reaction, like, to me, I was like, it's not a big deal, right? But to him, maybe it is a big deal, right? And one thing that we just talked about when we were off camera is the fact that something or a topic or a situation may have maybe a 10 on a scale of importance, or in this case, maybe a 6, right? For you, and for me, maybe a 2.
Yes.
Right? So we perceive these things differently.
Exactly.
Which causes kind of some friction, because I feel like you're overreacting, whereas you feel like I'm not taking you seriously.
Exactly.
Is that
Absolutely.
How would you put
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah, I put it exactly the same way. And then this is kind of like a reoccurring theme that's occurred between Sarah and I. The fact that we'll have one situation where one person perceives it as being important, and while the other one perceives it as being less important or not important at all. And because there's that discrepancy between how we both perceive the situation, then obviously our reactions are different. And then when you have different reactions and different feelings associated to those reactions, then that causes, depending on the topic, of course, could create some friction between you and your partner. And at least it has between Sarah and I in some instances.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's always the same things, right?
Yes.
I think sometimes it's hard to, you know, bring something up in terms of your importance to the situation or the topic, right? Even if your spouse is just like, well, this is really important to me. You may at the time be like, oh, if this is really important to you, then I'm gonna, you know, do my best to also make it important to me, so that we can be at the same level and really resolve the situation together.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes I think, like, at the time you make the effort, but then just naturally, you know, that topic becomes a 2 again for you. So I'll use another example.
Okay.
The example of eating together.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Right. Do you wanna explain, like, what I want versus what you want?
Okay. Well, I think there's 2 layers to this question. So obviously we want to try and eat together more often.
Right.
That's one thing.
Yes.
But then Sarah has specific rules when it comes to eating, you know, together, right, at the table together, right? So she wants to not only, obviously, for us to be at the table together and you know, sharing the meal, so there's no distractions, so we put the phones away, but also she wants to sit, like, for the entire time until both people are completely finished eating, and there can't be any real interruption in that.
I wouldn't put it like that.
Okay, fine, but obviously that's the way I kind of perceive it, where it's like there can't be an interruption. So, like, mainly it should be like from beginning to end. You should complete the meal, have obviously share a conversation, but then if you leave the table, or even if you excuse yourself, like, before the other person's done, and even if you go to the kitchen, like, I tend to go into the kitchen and start doing the dishes, while sometimes where she's still eating, and it's like, I'm still eating. So it's like, for her, that's very disrespectful.
Yeah, so for me, that's very important to when you are at a table together, because we don't always eat together at the table. So when we do have that opportunity, it is very important for us to finish together, in a sense that, like, Leonard eats a lot faster than I do, right? So literally he could be done in 6 minutes, and maybe I'll take 20 minutes, right? So I guess the way I grew up is that you sit at the table until everyone's done, you know, and sitting at the table signifies just family time, talking about your day and whatnot.
Yeah, quality time.
Yeah, quality time, exactly, right? So it is one time where we have the opportunity to bond and connect, right?
Yes.
So for me, sitting at the table for the entire meal, and the meal is not long, like max, it'll be like half hour.
Half hour,
right?
Very true.
That's for me on a scale to 10 will be like an 8, or a 7. It's very important that we sit together throughout the entire meal. So when I see that, you get up and it's like, after 6 minutes, I literally feel like you're bored, and I take it like a little bit personal, because I'm like, well, do you no longer want to talk to me? Whatever is doing the dishes more important than sitting down and having quality time with me? Or if you go to watch TV or be on your phone, to me, that just aggravates things, right? Because I'm just like, well, this is a 8 for me, but because for you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you say this is?
Oh, for me, it's still important. Like, I'll give it like depending on the day, like a 7 or a 6.
Okay, so I don't necessarily see that. His actions to me show, like, if you get up after 5 minutes and go to the dishes.
Oh, so now it's 5 minutes now?
Yes, it used to be 6, but sometimes it's 5. And do the dishes, and I'm like, you can do the dishes after the quality time, right? Because I'm still eating, I'm still, I still want to interact with you. So, like, I think the whole point is really to really see how important the situation is to the other person. And see if you can meet them at their level. Right? It's not always, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not always.
It does require compromise.
Right.
Yeah.
It does require some compromise, but I think that's where a lot of our other issues stem from, because the other person doesn't see how important it is to the partner.
Yeah. Another example that we have to often check ourselves usually stems with our punctuality when it comes to an appointment that we have to attend. Oftentimes what occurs is that depending on the importance of the appointment, or whether or not, and like by importance to the actual person, then there might be more sense of an urgency to leave, to give ourselves enough time to get there so we can be there on time.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically what's happening to us, I'll give you an example, is that it's very important for me that we leave at a certain time if we're going to go to a certain appointment, right? So let's say, the destination is like 15 minutes away. Then I see Lenard taking a shower like 20 minutes prior, like meaning like 5 minutes before the time that we have to leave. Then I'm like, oh, here we go, right?
Yeah.
And then we don't leave that late. Maybe we might leave like instead of 15 minutes early, we might leave like 10 minutes early or like 12 minutes early. But I know, like, Lenard plans the exact time required to get there. And I'm always telling him, like, well, what if, like, you get stuck behind a snowplow? What if something that you didn't plan for happens, right? So I'm big on, well, plan for the unexpected things. Leave 5 minutes earlier than what it takes, or 10 minutes or whatnot. But Lenard is like, well, we don't need to be there that early.
Yeah.
But for me, it is a big deal if we are late, right? So what's happening between us is just that, like, leaving on time is like an 8 for me, right? In scale of importance. Lenard, it's still high up there. It's still high
because we're both very punctual people, and we stem from punctual backgrounds too.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening is that regardless of the appointment, I always get mad. So it's like, let's say we're going to his mom. It's like, this is just an example. I don't think I've actually gotten mad when we got, have to go to your mom's. But regardless of the appointment, to me, we have to leave on time, right? Even if it's something casual, like a birthday party or, like a dinner, you could be 5, 10, I don't know, even half an hour late, sometimes. But I get upset at every single one of them when he's not ready on time. And what happens is that I think I need to check myself in a sense that I have to evaluate the importance of leaving on time in that particular situation,
Yeah,
right? Instead of stressing that every time we must leave exactly at the time that we have said. And I can't lie, I do get quite frustrated, and it changes my mood. It just like, I sulk. I'm in the car and we're like, so I think the point is when the person reacts a certain way, like the person who feels that the situation or the matter is the most important, I think we just have to take a look at like the impact that has on the relationship or on the situation. I have to ask myself, okay, well, Sarah, do you really need to get that mad if we didn't leave on time to go for to meet up a couple of friends? Do you really need to get that mad if we're going to birthday party, for example, right? And that the answer really needs, like, it's probably a no. But for example, if we're going somewhere where we really need to be on time, like an appointment with a mortgage broker, an appointment with,
a doctor, even though they make you wait all the time, but that's another topic.
That's when maybe accentuate, leaving on time. So it's really checking my own feelings and seeing, okay, is my reaction really worth it at the time? Like, should I really be reacting this way? Is this that important to the relationship or to the grand scheme of things in the situation? Right?
Yeah. And the way I check myself in those situations is, despite my inclination to just fall into those habits of like really like waiting to like the last minute to leave, even though we like Sarah says, like, we'll still leave, like 15 minutes ahead of time if that was the case. But like, maybe instead of taking my shower, 5 minutes before, maybe I should take it like half an hour before. And then also just take that extra step to like, say this is a trip that should, this Google Maps says it takes 20 minutes, just tack on an extra 5-10 to that travel time for any imprévus. So that's where, at least for myself, that's where I have to check myself, do that self-reflection, and also just to really, like, am I really gonna push these boundaries, knowing that Sarah feels a certain type of way about it. So just to prevent certain like possible like arguments or friction, then there's things that I can do to alleviate the situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it goes down to both parties really doing a self-reflection to really see, okay, well, if this is that important to this person, how can I also make it important to me?
Yes.
Right? And not dismissing the person's feelings, because oftentimes, because one person sees it as very important and the other person doesn't, they don't see the point of they don't see really they don't see the importance, right?
Exactly.
They don't understand why the person reacts a certain way. But if you actually try to not necessarily put yourself in their shoes, but just make it a little bit more important to meet them halfway or whatnot, then I think that will go a long way. So I think both parties needs to kind of see, okay, well, for one, should I be that upset about this situation? And the other party, well, for two, should I really take into consideration, or should I really reflect on what is important to her and make it more important to me as well, right?
Exactly. Like, I think the main thing you said in there is that if you know something's important to your partner and it's not so important to you, the worst thing you can do is dismiss your partner's feelings. So you really have to acknowledge that, even though you don't necessarily share the same feelings, hence what causes usually the friction, you still have to acknowledge those feelings, because those feelings are real, and those feelings stem from something where that your partner places value on. So you need to be sensitive to that, and you need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's really well said. Yeah. So, that's something that we wanted to bring up because it's very present in a relationship where one person feels like it's important and the other person doesn't. And then you just fight about it and you don't understand why the other person doesn't get you,
Yeah.
right? It's just because of the grade of importance, I think. And it's always good to self-reflect just to see, okay, well, even if it's that important to me, is it that big of a deal in a grand scheme of things,
yeah.
and the impact that it can have on the marriage or relationship.
Well, thank you for joining us. As always, like, subscribe. Until next time.
Don't forget to live your truth.